Welcome everyone to MailFuzz TV. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek Deep Space Nine Season 2, Episode 19. It's called Blood Oath. So spoilers for the episode as always. This episode is about a pact that Dax made, that is Curzon Dax made with some Klingons back in the day, and now Jedzia Dax really wants to hold that up. Which I don't think I got that from the description last time. I think when we read the description to this episode, I think I thought the dilemma was going to be that the Klingons want her to, and she'd feel conflicted because it's about going to murder someone and it's not technically her oath. It's actually the opposite. They don't want her involved, and she's like, no, I still feel loyal to this blood oath that I made. I'm for honor. I must go do it. So it's actually the reverse of what I thought it was going to be.
It is, but also she is still conflicted about murdering someone as well.
I mean, that is still there, yeah, but she's the one pushing for it, though.
Yeah, I mean, she's pushing to be involved. They're doing it either way.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So that's what the episode's about, and that's the thing. So, Joe, I will say, I found most of this episode pretty boring.
Really?
I'm sad to say it. I think I like the setup at the start. I think the opening with Odo and meeting the Klingons for the first time, I think, is solid. But I think once it gets to the point where we've set up what the story's about, and it's about Jedzia debating whether or not she should be involved and like talking to people about it. Other than one interesting scene with Kira, which I think is quite good, I found most of those deliberations and most of her trying to convince the Klingons to let her be involved to be kinda, I don't know, it felt repetitious to me. I feel like, I don't know.
I agree to an extent. I will say I wasn't bored. Like, I didn't find that. I was still into it. However, I did find myself very aware there wasn't a B plot.
That's true. Because there's several characters actually that are not in this episode. I was shocked when Cisco showed up at one point because it was like 2/3 out of the episode and we hadn't seen him yet. And I thought, oh, he's just not in this one.
Like, I like everything that is in this episode. All the conversations she has with each of the three Klingons. I like them all individually. I don't think we need all of them. I think we should have cut some of it down and had a B plot. But I still do like what is there at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of that, and then I think, you know, once we do actually get to the assault on the compound on this planet with the albino Klingon, because the fact is, they just kept saying the albino the whole episode, and I was like, are we talking about a human? And then we got to the guy, and I'm like, oh, it's a Klingon. But I mean, he's got white hair, so I get it. Like, I understand what they're saying, but it felt, I was like, is this a different like alien race that we've not come across yet? Just albinos, which feels like a weird name to use from like a real world perspective of writing a new race in a sci-fi TV show. But it's an albino Klingon, which fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I did enjoy the Odo stuff at the start, which is like Quark actually brings Odo in because this Klingon won't leave the Hollow Suite, and there's some humor to be had here, as there usually is with these two interacting. Like Quark saying, "Oh no, I can't turn the power off. He said he'd kill me," and Odo's like, "No, he said he'd kill you." turn off the power. Yeah. Or just Odo rolling his eyes when he's putting the Klingon in the prison cell, and then again when the other Klingon doesn't take him away, he just sort of rolls his, oh, it's a Klingon afternoon. Every time there's Klingons on this station, I have a Klingon afternoon. And I thought that was all pretty amusing. So that's nice enough.
That was oh, it's always nice to start these episodes on a little bit of humor, even when it's a serious episode. I think yes. Especially when you have like Quark and Odo, it's easy to just ease into an episode with that.
Yeah, I think maybe that's my other thing with this episode, is that the entire conceit is about whether or not to kill this guy who did something bad to all these characters, right? And we do find out what it is at a certain point, obviously. She tells Kira. And it does sound bad, you know, these three Klingons were sent in to stop him on their warships because he was up to no good somewhere. And because they did stop him, this albino Klingon, like, swore vengeance on all of their firstborns, and a few years later he did just that. He poisoned all of their firstborns, so that's why they all want revenge, and they all made a blood oath together with Dax, who was like best friends with him back and this was,
well, she was the godfather of
and notably this is before the Klingons were friends with the Federation. This was back when they were kind of enemies. Like, I mean, even
I really liked that bit where he's like, hey, you were part of the reason why there's peace between us. You were the first diplomat to meet us on our terms.
I like that detail. Like, this is the weird thing about this episode, is I like a lot of the details that are presented to me. I just don't know if I find the story and the way it's told that compelling. Partly because of the repetition of like talking to all the Klingons, and I just kind of found it a little uninteresting building up to her decision to leave. I think if it had focused more on the side of like whether or not she wants to do it, but honestly, it feels pretty clear very quickly that she definitely does want to do it, and then it's about convincing the Klingons to let her do it, and that was maybe less interesting to me. But then the other thing which I'm getting at is that while this guy does sound quite bad, this albino Klingon, and we do see him eventually when they go to get him at the end of the episode, he's kind of just this, like, I don't know, it's like they talk a lot about him, and that can work as a kind of like a spectre kind of like, oh, we're building up the mystique of how bad this guy is, and maybe that could have worked had it lived up to the in a sense where it felt like he was really bad when we got to him. But he just kind of feels like a typical villain when we get to him at the end. No. He's got his castle, he's barking orders around. He doesn't feel like, they've got to the Joker or something like that, where he's a complete lunatic who's just murdering people left and right, or whatever it is. I don't know who to compare him to, but I just...
He's clearly like a rogue warlord, is how they should have played it, and played up that angle a bit more. But I will agree, they definitely could have done more with him as an actual threat. Like, we heard about all the things he did. We know how bad he was. I don't think we really understand how bad he is now, because it feels like he's just kind of an older man now. Like, there's even the scene where the one that did track him down is like, hey, I got pinged immediately. He's like, hey, I'm bored of this chase. Let's just settle it. And it feels like, he's gotten old as well.
Yeah, and that revelation as well, that the leader of the three Klingons had not betrayed them, but had like kind of already met with the bad guy to agree that, oh, we'll have some big final battle so we can all die with Klingon honor or something. And Joe, what's so frustrating is that there's like things that it hints at that it doesn't go into that I think's actually maybe more interesting, is that none of the henchmen for the albino Klingon are Klingon. They're all just other aliens. And at one point he even says, don't let any of that Klingon filth in here, even though he's clearly a Klingon. And I thought that was interesting because it maybe suggests like how, as an albino Klingon, he's been treated by the rest of the Klingons or something like that. Maybe there's some story there, some idea of prejudice that we can delve into and find out why he hates them all so much.
He doesn't actually feel part of their race anymore.
Yeah.
No.
But that's just that one line. That's all you really get is that little moment, and that's it. Like, I appreciate that it doesn't end on it, because there's a whole thing where when she's going to leave, Kira's told Sisko, so Sisko shows up finally, right? And we never see Bashir this episode, we never see O'Brien, there's a few other characters we don't see, but Sisko does show up, and it made sense for him to show up and try and talk to Dax because they are old friends, and he's like, no, you're not getting leave time, like, no, you're staying here, like, I'm ordering you to stay. And she's like, don't make me this will be an order, like, this means a lot, like, I made a blood oath, I have to go do this. And it ends in this heated moment where he's like, so what, you're just going to come back and just continue as if nothing ever happened? And she's like, well, that's up to you, I guess, isn't it? Because you're the one that's threatening action if I leave. So we end the episode when she comes back, and we just get they share a glance. He doesn't look very happy, but he doesn't say anything to her. She goes to her station, and she also glances over to Kira, and we'll talk about her scene with Kira in a minute as well, because that was probably, for me, probably the best scene of the episode. But I do like that it ends on like a sort of like a sour note, because part of me was worried that she was going to get back and they just kind of have a happier, like, oh, all's forgiven.
Oh, it's fine.
Yeah.
I hope they continue with this element, because I think Dax and Sisko have been so close over the show, right? Because they have that history together. They already had that bond, so they've kind of kept that throughout. And she feels a lot closer with Sisko than pretty much almost anyone else does. And I hope this does change that relationship. Maybe it is a little bit frostier going forward. Maybe it is Sisko again being like, you're not the man I knew. And I know we've had a few of those moments, but just this one really has to hammer it home. But like, you went to murder someone in cold blood, as far as he's concerned. Like, that was a line. And I do hope that is reflected.
And perhaps the most interesting part about that is that it's not just that Dax is different because it's Jed's Dax. If anything, Jed's Dax is like, because this was Curzon's Dax Blood Oath. He specifically says that this isn't Curzon Dax. Like, Curzon Dax hated senseless murder just as much as I would. So it's not like he's saying, "Oh, you're just different now because you're a different Dax." This is actually something that I think goes against who he was. So this doesn't make sense to me on that level.
I think it's that, and also the idea that because Curzon Dax made this oath. He seemingly did believe in it fully, and the idea that Cisco, his friend, would have had that, like that's not who he thought Curzon Dax was. So it has to make him reevaluate that whole like relationship that he has as well, like with Curzon, that he, who he thought he was. Maybe he didn't know him as well as he thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think here's what I'll say. As much as I'm saying that I found myself being a bit bored by this episode, I don't think it kind of lived up to what it could have been. I don't have a problem with any of the actual things that it's trying to do or set up in the characters. So I do hope there's consequences to what's happened here. I hope that relationship is a little bit, shaken up because of these events. And Deep Space Nine has typically kept these things going forward to some extent. So it may not be the sort of thing where we feel it immediately next time they speak to each other, but I do think it'll either come back up or it'll at least be something that comes to mind when they have another disagreement, where we'll maybe think back to this moment and say, "Oh, this is a pattern now of this type of situation," kind of thing. So I can appreciate most of what it's doing here and the dilemmas that it puts the characters into. I just don't know if I really like how a lot of it played out as a episode of TV. I did like the scene with Kira though, where Dax just kind of brings up, "Hey Kira, how many people did you kill?" And she's like, "What?" Like, "Well, when you were in the resistance, against the Cardassians, like, how many people did..." She's like, "Too many." Like, I mean, why are you asking this? She's like, if I'm hitting if it's a tough topic, I won't continue. We can stop. And she's like, "Yeah, it is kind of tough to talk about." But then she looks at her and she's like, "Wait, are you planning on killing someone?" And the way she doesn't like smile back as if that's a funny thing to say, it just lets Kira know, "Wait, are you actually thinking of killing some? What's happening? What's happening here?" And then she does kind of open up a little bit about what it's like to kill, and because one of the questions that Dax asks her is were they all just kind of faceless Cardassian soldiers, or did you know some of the people you actually killed? Like, did you know their names? Did you know who it was you were ending when you did that? But like, Kira does not recommend it. It's not like she's proud of the killing that she did when she was part of a resistance, and obviously Kira's backstory was a big part of season 1, and it's something we've kind of so I like that she went to her because it felt like it was playing upon like the characters we know in their history, and it makes sense to do that. And it also kind of lets you know by proxy that this isn't something that Curzon was doing, and it's not something that Jed's Dax has done really in the past either, because they were both Starfleet officers.
Despite the fact that he took this oath, and we have to assume intended to honor that oath. It would have been it shows how big a deal it was to make it in the first place, and how big a deal it is that she feels that she needs to carry it through because it's so against who they normally are.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea is to build up the villain almost there, right? Is that that Curzon, Curzon was a Starfleet officer. He would not just kill for no reason. So the fact that he agreed to a blood oath to get revenge should be like elevating the idea of how bad this villain is. I guess I never just felt that clicking to me though. And then obviously when we actually see the villain at the last chunk of the episode, it just never feels like it pays that off to me. I
think the bit where it's like, no, the villain just targeted the innocent young children, and that's the bit where Dax is like, no, that you can see that's what hit so hard, right? It's the war. Yeah, they can live with that. To some extent, like that was the nature of it. Like that would never have caused revenge of this scale, like to even cross their minds, I don't think. But when it was like, no, they took out innocent children for no reason other than because they said they would. I think that's that is pretty monstrous, right?
Yeah.
I don't think the ending of the villain, like when we see him, I don't think it lives up to that. Don't get me wrong.
No, I mean, it also gives a bit of a get out clause because Dax is like confronted with the idea: do I have to be the one to kill him now? but then the other Klingon just stabs him in the back, so Dax doesn't have to do it. And it's like, well, okay, that just got her out of jail for free, basically.
Yeah, I do wish it had come down to she had to make a choice, not the choice was making for her.
Yeah.
I think that would have hit hard. And either way, like whichever way, whether she killed him or not, I think would have been interesting, and there's stuff to do in either direction. I don't think it really matters, but I think taking the choice away is easily the least interesting option.
Yeah, and then two of the Klingons die in the battle towards the end, and there's some like planning, like they disrupt all the phasers, so they have to fight hand to hand, which is an advantage for the Klingons because they've got the batlets and all that, and all the rest of it. There's a scene where she has to prove like she wants to go by like fighting one of the Klingons with a bat'leth in the holodeck kind of area, and that was one of the scenes where I wasn't really feeling it. I think one of the things that was maybe getting me about this episode as well is that we've got 3 Klingon characters, and I think they're relatively well defined by character, and one's kind of the drunk who wants to just keep drinking and talk to pretty women, one's more serious and chastises him, and then kind of the leader one who shows up last, he's a bit more of a thinker, and he's the one who is more thoughtful, and he's the one that's really saying you can't come. But I will say that the two that aren't the leader looked very similar, so until they actually like said stuff where I got which one it was, I was having a little bit a tough time discerning them apart occasionally.
They even had like pretty similar names, where they were both like K names, like
yeah, one was Kang and one was like
Kola?
Kotho or Kono or something like that, yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly, but they were both like similar like K names.
Yeah, so that was another thing that was kind of getting in the way for me a little bit as I was going through the episode. It's like I understood who each of them are character wise, but I think an effort to make them look a bit different with them, because one had a very different facial hair, but the two of them had very similar kind of grey beards and hair, yeah. So it was very hard to like immediately recognize them because they both have the Klingon foreheads, obviously, and all that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's fair. Like I said, I definitely would have cut at least a couple of the scenes of her convincing them to let her go and had a B plot. I think that would have made this episode significantly better for it. Because I think, like I said, I like everything individually, I think is very good. It just does some things a bit too much.
I think her deciding to go is a more interesting debate than her having to convince them to let her go. Particularly because once we find out why they didn't want to let her go, the leader didn't want to let her go because he'd already kind of made this deal and he knew it was kind of like a suicide mission. I thought that was a really uninteresting reveal. When she's like, "Oh, that's why you didn't want me to come," I was like, "Really? That's like I don't know." That's again, it was kind of like the way that the bad guy dies. It was kind of the least interesting answer to why he wouldn't want her to come for me.
Yeah, I like the idea though that it still came down to, that. He did still expect her to follow the oath, like not expecting that I demand it, but anticipated that they'd live up to the oath, even though there is no obligation in the new body, and he understood that going in, but more just the fact that they would do it anyway, even knowing that it was a suicide mission. Like I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, and on the flip side, like, some of the little bits of lore that I did quite like was one of the Klingons talking to her about how, he's an old Klingon now and he remembers the way things were, and like blood oaths don't mean as much as they used to. In fact, like a lot of Klingons are
those
warriors.
Damn kids don't care about them anymore.
Yeah, but a lot of Klingons now are opening like restaurants and stuff that are serving customers of all different alien races, some of whom we were at war with when I was young, and he like I like that. Sort of like an old Klingon pondering how things have changed since Klingons have become part of the Federation, and or at least Worf's in the Federation, so there's some Klingon ambassador style things going on.
Yeah, I think it's like, obviously we've seen between this and original series the vast difference between Klingons and the way they are. I like the idea that is not just we new show we just wanted to change it. Just like there is a full societal shift that's taken place over generations.
Yeah, I like them mentioning that. I thought that was a good little tidbit, and I'd be interested in maybe exploring that, because obviously Worf's a younger Klingon, right? He's one who's grown up and is kind of at the forefront of being with other species and all that.
Worf's a really interesting one though because of his personal past, where he, despite the fact that he is an outsider, relatively speaking, and is part of this new younger generation, because of his like enforced status as an outsider and his upbringing, he wants to be into the old ways more. It's like he has like ultra respect for the old way. You know, like, oh, I have to do everything by the book, go to the council. Like every time we've been there and done stuff with his plot, it's all no, I'm going to respect everything. Like, whereas I think like there's maybe a lot of the younger ones who are like brought up from birth in the new era. Like maybe they don't have that respect for the older ways that he does.
Yeah, it's interesting to see if they explore any more of this going forward, actually, because they might. I think it's possible. I'm curious when Worf joins this show, actually, because like, is it season 3? Is it as soon as Next Gen's done, like he was over on the next season, or is it like something they decide to do a season or 2 later? I'm very curious. But,
yeah, I don't actually know.
Because I know Worf's going to be on this as a regular at some point. I'm kind of excited for it, actually. See him. I'm just imagining Worf sitting with Quark and all the hilarity that might ensue.
Oh, I can just imagine Worf like just grabbing him in a chokehold. To be honest,
Odo's got a new best friend.
He's gonna grab him by the ear.
Odo and Worf just like become new buddies, play chess
Security
together.
chiefs together.
Yeah. Oh dear. Yeah, I wonder what Worf's role in the station is, because I assume Odo's still security chief. So what's Worf's position?
I think, without any obvious spoilers, and I have not read anything to suggest that I'm right here, but I would suspect it would be more militarily based.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I suspect there's going to be some conflicts in the coming seasons, so it makes sense they would want someone there that's...
Yeah, unfortunately, we do know the bare minimum.
Yes, we know there's a war coming, okay?
Yeah.
We know that much.
Yeah,
but...
I would assume that his role is to do with that as opposed to security, because I think that would make sense. At least, again, I could be completely wrong. That's a guess.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah, he's like the military commander on station. Yeah. Obviously it's still answer to Cisco, but like he'd be the one actually running all the Federation troops, as it were.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. That's Blood Oath. I don't have much more to add on it, really. I did kind of like the little touch that when they go off for the mission, Dax doesn't wear a Starfleet uniform. She puts on like a kind of human Klingon outfit, for lack of a better term.
With the pads.
But yeah, it's got a pad, got the shoulder pads sticking out. Yeah. There's a nice little detail. So yeah, I was a bit lukewarm in this episode, but I think even when an episode of Deep Space Nine is kind of, for me, mediocre, I at least still tend to appreciate the stuff they're trying to add to the either the lore of a character, or the lore of a species, or the lore of the station. There's usually something that I can appreciate what they're going for, even if I don't think the episode was that good to actually watch. I can usually appreciate what it's trying to add to the mythos, at least. I
get that. I think for me, more than what it actually is, just because I like what it is doing and what it's adding. In every individual scene, I like the things it's doing, with like that one exception being her not having the choice at the end.
Yeah.
But all the conversations I do like. I do think that there is a better episode by cutting some of it out and having a B-plot.
Yeah, and it's not to say that this has never had a silly episode, but typically when there's a bad episode of Next Gen, it'll usually just be a silly plot or something that doesn't really add much other than just what it is. So
yeah, this is not a silly plot. This is a serious plot, just not quite nailed.
Yeah. So that is Blood Oath. Next time when we return to Deep Space Nine, we'll be doing the Maquis. I think that's how you pronounce that. The Maquis Part 1. We're getting a 2-parter starting with the next episode. So we'll see how that goes. I'll read the description here. I probably won't do this at the end of the next one, though, because it's a 2-parter. I don't see the point in reading
We don't usually,
Yeah, second part thing. But here's the description for Part 1. The destruction of a Cardassian ship leads Cisco, Ducat, and Cisco's old friend, Cal Hudson, to the fact that there's an unofficial war between the Maquis and the Cardassians. Now, I don't recognize that name, so I assume we'll learn a lot about who the Maquis are, or Maquis, or however you pronounce it.
Yeah.
So
we'll find out.
Maquis, maybe?
I feel like we're going to say it a lot.
I'm sure they're going to say it 100 times in the next episode, so I'll learn how to
Yeah,
pronounce
you'll
it.
be sick of hearing it by the end of this two-parter.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see how that goes. So yeah, two-parter. Interesting. Interesting it's a two-parter so close to the end of the season, but not right at the end of the season.
Unconventional.
Interesting. But hey, we'll see how that is next time. But obviously we'll return with Next Gen next time. So yeah, look out for that. But that is the show. Thank you for joining us. You can of course support MailFuzz TV over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV or via YouTube memberships. Thanks to everyone who already does. You can get bonus stuff, particularly for all the movie shows over at MailFuzz Movies. But that is the show. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We do appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek. And Odo's time in this episode was done after the first like 5 minutes. So I guess he just went to his bucket and just chilled for the rest of the day.